Hey, Russell, you there? I just heard you.
And welcome to our next session, where we have our good friends over here at GatherVerse Men's Health Summit that have just concluded on an incredible, wonderful roundtable discussion. We're going to be interviewing next here our very own Christian Brown, who's been on a sojourn, if you will, in different places around the world when it comes to mental wellness for men and for women, and being able to teach a variety of communities when it comes to mental wellness. Christian, we're very happy to have you. How are you?
I'm very happy to be here. I'm grateful to be here. Doing well, healthy. So, no complaints. How are you, good sir?
Very well. And it was just an extraordinary roundtable discussion that we just had, a very, very deep dive into a better understanding of how we look at the focus point of wellness from human perspective, and then how technology helps to leverage scale of that.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to be able to arrive at a stage where we start with people rather than platforms first. I think it does speak to the necessity of us making sure that we prioritize humans in the equation much more further than the investments that we put in technology. With that said, I want to be able to scale into this consideration of wellness. And for you, you've studied not only here and originating here in the United States, but also in Europe, and exploring not just the psychology and the unexplored understanding of mental wellness as we know it, contemporary to our time, but also understanding with emerging technologies, you've been able to situate dozens of communities together in Paris and in different various places in France and Switzerland and more. What are you seeing now in the state of play when it comes to mental wellness as someone that I know that lives this life and exploring this life and has personal impact because of it?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's important to just add some context around my perspective, right? First is being a man in my 20s, born in the US, starting my career post college in technology, but then experiencing burnout, being diagnosed with severe anxiety, and entering my own therapeutic journey. And from there, gaining a passion for mental health and wellness resources, and realizing that it is a gift. It's a privilege to have that type of access, and then having the desire to move abroad to where I've been, the past 4 years in France, and which introduced me to an entirely new way of life, entirely new culture. And so just throughout that journey, what I'm seeing today when it comes to mental wellness, I'm seeing a still such a huge need for more. I'm still seeing that there is opportunity to innovate now that we have just access to amazing technologies that allow us to build an app in a day, right? We still have so many people that are struggling globally. I saw it in France, and now I've been back in the US for a couple of months, and I'm seeing it here. And so I think for me as a builder, as an innovator, the one thing that really stands out to me is that there's still a big need for tools, solutions, and strategies for people to take control, take ownership over their mental well-being, and ultimately their path to healing.
We talk about this path to healing, and
Yeah.
many people that were within that environment, they will understand what that means, the path.
Mm.
Why a path?
Yeah. So I say a path because I see it as a process, right? It's like for me personally speaking, just through my experience in therapy, there's first comes this this awareness that happens, right? And it brings me back to what the work that I'm doing now. Focus on well-being within the workplace. I created this framework around well-being that starts with awareness, and that awareness piece is first realizing, okay, there's something within me that needs attention, right? There's something within me that I feel friction. I don't feel good, right? That there's that awareness piece, and then it comes to alignment. So alignment focuses on what are my values, and how are my values um, being acknowledged within relationships, within work. Am I feeling aligned? And then there goes the agency. An agency speaks to the freedom that you have once you do feel that alignment within your workplace or within your relationships. And then it goes to belonging. Okay, I feel safe here. And then there's sustainability. Okay, I'm building up tools and strategies to sustain my well-being. And so that entire loop is a process. And so when I talk about path, I also am thinking of the word process, because right now we're all in a process. Where we are today is because of the process that we've been through the past few years, right? And where we will be in the future is because of the process that we're in right now. And so it kind of goes to the tone of, we're always becoming someone. We're always in this process of becoming, and that becoming is the path that we're on. Each one of us are on individually.
Thank you for sharing. I know, Christian, that you've done work with banks and worked with all different types of companies and corporations on this path. When it comes to mental wellness, um, are you seeing that companies and corporations are more open and receptive towards wanting those people uh, that they work with, including your designated contacts and people that you're working with? Are they
Mhm.
receptive to uh, growth when it comes to wellness and well-being and mental wellness in particular?
Definitely, 100%. And most of the people that I talk to are in the human resources department, if you will. Since I've been back in the States, I recently started a podcast series called Leading Well. I'm sure you like that name, I'm sure.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So leading well. And so with that podcast, the focus is to interview senior HR leaders about the intersection of well-being um, and productivity, right? The tagline is building workplaces that feel good and work better, because it's obvious to both leadership and the front line that well-being is important, but well-being has to be tied to business metrics for it to be invested in the way that it should, right? And so to answer your question, the need is definitely there. It's obvious, but the kind of the gap that still exists is, okay, what metrics exist to where I can clearly see a ROI on investing in the well-being of my people, right? So being able to speak to things like, okay, retention, turnover, productivity, engagement, right? For me, the challenge has been, how do I tell the story in a way that clearly allows leadership to see that there is a business outcome to investing in the well-being of their people.
We talk about this ROI, and
Mhm.
we see that there's measurable outcomes now with mental
Yeah.
wellness. And in our first roundtable discussion, many people were talking about um, these applications that we're using. I know that Nathan brought that up, and Caitlin expressed it as well, and as well as Jesper. And we see technology infused within working environments more so than we ever have before, infused in our daily lives more so than we ever have before. Now that we're able to measure and see the obvious benefits of mental wellness, and we have various practitioners in those, such as yourself, that are working with whole entire organizations and cohorts to help get them on a better path. And audience, I do encourage you to reach out to Christian. He's very honest with his methodologies and approaches towards mental wellness, and I completely 100% support it. But here's my question, Christian. If you can walk into an environment and teach and train on mental wellness, so can AI.
Mm.
What's the difference between the heartbeat and the machine in this equation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think just the word you used, the heartbeat. I think the heartbeat is the main difference in the equation, because AI does not have a heartbeat, right? And there's something about a heartbeat that automatically it develops a connection within humans. And so what I'm seeing personally is that when there's opportunity for a marriage between human and machine, there's a lot of value there, right? And then one of the reasons why I really admire, what you're building with GatherVerse, what you've been building, really focus on humanity first approaches to emerging technology. And when I think of humanity first, I think first comes the human, right? And the human has to always be involved in this process. And I also believe when it comes to speaking about working with organizations are still some, right, still on the fence when it comes to AI. Right? How do they fully implement it? You spoke about me working with a bank, and I worked with a bank in Switzerland, and huge bank, and they hadn't even implemented AI into their systems, right? Not even just on AI, but on any level, just because of their bureaucracy there, but also just because it's still a growing technology, right? And so when a human is able to come in and say, "Hey, I'm leading this, right? This is something that I'm doing based on my experience and my research, and my studies, but I'm bringing in this tool to optimize and to add value, and this is how it adds value." I think there's an opportunity that practitioners have to also become educators when it comes to AI too, and that's also a role that I'm excited about, right? Educating on AI as well, especially since my foundational belief is humanity first.
I think that all practitioners and all of those that work in horizontally in every industry that has the capacity to understand emerging technologies as a whole is in need to become educators in this particular time. I really like and appreciate that you said that, is because you'll come out of school and you'll have graduated from whatever vocation, university or college that you come from, or school, and you didn't know that you were going to be challenged, if you will, with artificial intelligence, for example, or working in spatial environments, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a learning curve that you weren't given when you were educating on becoming whatever it is that you're going to become in life as far as your career path. And so now we find ourselves with this technology that's quite capable, and it is, quite capable of teaching and learning and guiding. And people are using artificial intelligence every single day throughout the day. But then at the same time, as you've expressed, there's those organizations that haven't even touched it. And the real concern is that there's such a disbalance when these organizations do use it. They see that it's capable. They don't understand the need to have a human in the loop, is because there are things that artificial intelligence cannot fulfill that simply a human can. It goes to the Maslow's paradox. What's easy for AI is hard for humans, but what's easy for humans is hard for AI. And I think we should not forget that when it comes to how we adopt and subscribe to technology. Christian, being on that note, because I don't want to stray too far from that into the narrative of this event, as a man, do you find it increasingly difficult to find resources and solutions towards this wellness path? Or are you finding that there's an abundance of information available? And if then within that abundance, that this information available is good and useful information, or is there a need to continue to grow towards contributing towards current resources because of the need to adapt contemporary to our time to new situations and environments, and given the volatility of life and the planet and earth, and the political theater and things that are happening non-political, do you find that there's not enough resources, or there are enough resources to be able to help get people towards that next day?
Yeah, great question. For me personally, in my own experience as a man, I think there's a plethora of information right now, especially with AI. So many resources, but I believe there's a gap when it comes to community, especially as a man. Um, and and this hits me close because I have spent the past 4 years overseas, away from home, away from my childhood friends, and having to come back to Atlanta and rebuild community a, a more mature place. It's been challenging, um, because I think as men we do have a responsibility to lead, right? We have a responsibility, to to be providers and protectors and cultivators and all these things. But it can be lonely, right? It can be lonely, especially as a man pursuing healthy relationships, right? I think there's so many so many toxic I think toxic environments for men. There's so many toxic
Sure.
circles, right, for men. And so once you do decide to commit to the path of healing, it can be hard to find other brothers who are also on that same path that you can go on the journey with, right? And I think it speaks to just the loneliness, epidemic that has been prevalent for a long time, right? It's like Harvard has the longest study, on loneliness, right? And loneliness being one of the detriments to happiness. And so that's what I feel personally, and what I see is that for men there's so many resources, right? But when it comes to the human connection, there has to be communities that exist to support the men who are committing to living healthy lives.
I agree, and I salute that. Thank you, Christian Brown, so much for having us. The opportunity to be able to sit with you and explore. We look forward to hearing more of your sentiments for day one and day two of GatherVerse. And
Thank you,
coming
Chris.
up now, audience, we have an extraordinary roundtable discussion with those that really have come to bring us a cadre of information that we certainly haven't been equipped with before. Thank you, Christian. Our gather
Thank
as
you, brother.
well. And for our next roundtable, may our gather be well.